Congestion pricing, rising fares, stopping fare evasion. Big issues, big concerns, and big headaches for the man who heads the MTA. Is Janno Lieber's solution to take 2 Advil and call the train doctor in the morning? The Point starts right now. Janno Lieber has a lot of problems to face in running the MTA, but what are the solutions? First, I'd like to talk to you about congestion pricing. As you know, suburban commuters, especially people who live in New Jersey, are not too pleased about having to pay a congestion fee. So there's been some suggestion that people who come into the city over the Holland and Lincoln tunnels might not be double taxed, that they would just pay the fee that they pay to take the tunnels. Do you think that's an idea worth exploring? It
is actually an idea that we have specifically studied as part of our very complicated and extensive 4,000-page environmental review required under federal law. So, yeah, we're looking at that. All of the discounts and exemptions ideas, and there have been over 100 different groups and people have asked, for discounts, exemptions, credits, and so on, are going to be studied by this group that was created by the New York State Legislature when they enacted congestion pricing back in 2019. So we're definitely looking at it. The bigger issue, you said at the outset, what are the big problems? Congestion in our city. Keeping ambulances from getting to hospitals, fire trucks from getting to fires. We got to do something about it. We can't just put our heads in the sand. This is a responsible approach.
But see, the reason I talked to you about that specific thing, about the idea of no double taxing of people who come in from New Jersey, is the kind of thing that could quell the opposition from, dare I say it, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, the congressmen, other people like that, and would also not have people deciding to telecommute because they wouldn't feel that they were paying.
Listen, I respect, Governor Murphy is a partner, especially he and Governor Hochul work together really, really well. A lot of respect. But with all due respect, they don't ask our permission to increase tolls on the Garden State Parkway or the Jersey Turnpike. They just increase tolls on in the areas that they control. We are very much entitled to deal with our central business district's existential congestion problem. We're being responsible about it, and we're taking fairness to New Jersey into consideration. That is definitely on our minds.
So what about fairness to the people who are coming from Long Island? And if you talk about the possibility of no double taxation for the people who take the Holland and Lincoln tunnels, which go into the central business district, what about the people who take the Midtown Tunnel and the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel? Would you think about fairness for them too, so they wouldn't be double taxed?
Marcia, that absolutely. We're not going to advantage New Jersey over New Yorkers. Whatever we do, obviously, is going to take into consideration people who are paying tolls who are coming from Long Island and and Queens and Brooklyn and the boroughs. So, that's very much on our mind, and it's part of the study that we've been doing. But now it's time for action. We've been waiting to deal with this. And did we find out this week that air quality matters? If you were in the central business district this week, the air quality was terrible, the congestion was terrible. People can't get around. Yeah, it was terrible. So we got to do something about it. Head in the sand is not an option. We're dealing with it. Governor Hochul's in the lead.
The reason I'm asking the question is because there is a concern on the part of people who run the state and run the city that we're going to have more people are going to telecommute or continue to telecommute because they don't want to pay the congestion fee. And I wonder if you're taking that into consideration as we move forward on raising the money that you need to better for this.
Marcia, no one ever got any facts by you. The truth is that 85% of the people who come to Central Business District take mass transit, including the New Jersey folks who overwhelmingly take mass transit and use the MTA system. So number one, all those people are going to benefit from the money the congestion pricing is going to generate. More important, a study found that only 1% of the people who live in that Bergen County Congressman's district actually drive to the business. business district. So this has been an issue which has been pushed out, maybe for political reasons, but it's wildly disproportionate to the people who actually drive to the CBD, drive to our business district, because we all know how much it costs to park. I mean, poor people are not driving to Midtown Manhattan and paying $50 to park. It's really a small group.
So another concern are small businesses who are worried that congestion pricing might affect the numbers of people who would go to their businesses. I know as part of the latest report that you have pledged to talk to the small businesses before and after to see whether they're affected. My question to you is, if they are affected, what's the solution?
Listen, the bottom line is it's going to be better for everybody if the trucks that have to deliver to those small businesses can actually get around. That's better. It saves them money. It's going to be better for the people who do have to drive to the CBD if it's easier to get around. So there's going to be a net benefit to everybody. The overwhelming majority of customers of all those businesses you're talking about take mass transit. They're going to benefit from this system, and the CBD is going to be easier to drive around. It's good for all New Yorkers.
But also part of the plan is to charge less money one of the proposals is to charge less if you come in at night, to try to increase the number of truck deliveries that come in from, say, midnight to 6 or whatever the hours turn out to be. So what effect is that going to have on businesses who will have to open in order to get these deliveries, these truck deliveries?
Listen, we're not going to change everybody's behavior, but we've been talking in New York since I started as a kid in the Koch administration in the 1980s about trying to get more truck deliveries in the off hours. It's good for everybody. Easier for the truckers, easier to offload goods, and will be better for congestion. So this is just a step in that direction. I think everybody wants that to happen. We're creating an incentive for those big trucks who can have impact on congestion to use the middle of the night to make their deliveries. I think it's going to work.
What's your position on residential parking permits in the areas near where people are going to come in? Upper Manhattan or on the the Queens side of the bridges. Do you think that there should be residential parking permits so that the people who are coming in from the suburbs won't be taking up all the local parking spots?
Listen, you said at the outset that I have a lot of issues to worry about. That is not one of them. That's in the city's jurisdiction. I'm going to let them decide how they deal with street parking. That's the mayor and the city DOT's issue. But listen, all the studies so far have actually shown that it's with the number of cars that are going to come to the city being reduced, it's actually going to have less impact on residential parking. So I'm confident that issue is not going to become a major issue as well.
Another issue is the concern about pollution in low-income areas. Now, I know that as part of the discussion, there's a discussion about spending $20 million on asthma education and remediation, but also you're pledging to spend $10 million to install air filtration systems in schools near these highways. Tell me about that. Well,
listen, whenever you're doing anything that impacts on traffic patterns, you got to take advantage of the opportunity to see how we can improve conditions in areas. So what we did, that we're doing some very specific high impact stuff. For example, in the South Bronx, which has a lot more than its share of trucks and highways. The big thing is in the Hunts Point market, where there's tons of trucks. There are all these refrigeration units that are diesel powered. We're going to replace a lot of them with much more energy efficient, non-diesel powered. So that's going to eliminate all of the emissions impact of congestion pricing in that area of the Bronx. Congressman Richie Torres, big supporter of that. So, but in some other areas,
electric trucks, or
we're talking about having refrigeration units that are not diesel powered, whether they're electric or hybrid or otherwise, because those diesel powered refrigeration units in the Hunts Point market are killing the air in the South Bronx. So we're dealing with one very big specific problem. We're investing in encouraging trucking companies to switch to electric trucks from diesel trucks, and we're doing the stuff that you mentioned, which is throughout the region we're going to help schools have air purification in some cases if they're close to highways. That's something that we've been doing, and it's just generally good policy, and we're going to do a little bit more of it.
Are you going to limit it to schools or other things like firehouses or police precincts or things like that are near the highways?
Good question. I think the plan right now calls for schools because obviously asthma, impact on young people of of air pollution is the first priority because of young lungs. But I think that we're looking at, as the plan unfolds, we're looking at a range of different investments that are going to be good for air quality and human life in those areas.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but we'll be right back. We're back with the transit doctor, Janno Lieber, which is different from Train Daddy, who was, a previous administration. I want to talk to you about the fare hikes. I know that some people are unhappy that you had to raise the fare, given the fact that you got a huge windfall from Albany. I wonder what the defense of that is.
Well, what the Governor Hochul took a look at what was happening to the MTA. We were looking at $2 billion deficits. She said, we got to solve that. And with her leadership, we got the legislature to solve most of the MTA deficit for the next 4 years. Albany frequently works just year to year to year. We solved the problem for 4 years. Part of that was the MTA had to come up with $400 million of savings on our own without cutting jobs and cutting service. So we're contributing. But also, part of that plan was the restoration of the small incremental increases in the fare every couple of years. We didn't do it for 4 years. In fact, I think the base fare hadn't changed since 2015. So it was time for us to deal with the real world, that a little bit of inflation every year keeps us financially stable. We don't want to create another crisis in the future.
How do you feel about the plea by Riders Alliance and other groups that you should extend the fare program to more people and that the city should be paying for that?
We love the fares program. What it does is it doesn't say everybody gets a discount. What it does is it targets affordability of the people who need it. And what the advocates are saying, which I think is a solid idea, is let's make the threshold of eligibility higher, because right now
they want it to be $50,000.
Yeah, right now you only get the discount if you're under the federal poverty line. In New York, the reality is it's way higher than $27,000 for a family of four. So they're saying raise the threshold. I think that's a fair idea. We love working with the mayor. He's got to balance his own budget, but we think that's a very positive idea and support it.
So another problem that you do have to deal with is fare evasion, but it's not just fare evasion on subways. A lot of the fare evasion is on the buses. I have a lot of people here at CBS who take the bus who complain that they get on the bus and they're the only ones that are paying the fare. What's a reasonable way to stop fare evasion on buses, especially since people can come in the back door?
This is something people have been talking about for a few years. We're actually doing something about it. I put together a commission of experts to study it and give us a package of suggestions. We just got that a couple weeks ago. It's a mix of good ideas. One is we have to change the physical fare array in the subway system. It's too porous, especially that exit gate.
So you want to change the gates?
Change the gates so it's not so easy just to pop the gate open and walk in. Number two is we need to do, we need what you talked about before, which is to make sure that fare evasion is never a crime of poverty. So have the discounts be really for low-income people, so that they know that they can afford it. And as I say, fare evasion is not a crime of poverty. We have to do more education with kids, and law enforcement is part of this. We have actually doubled the number of fare evasion enforcements in the last summonses in the last year. So there's a lot more fare evasion enforcement. We now have to, as you said, turn what we're doing more effectively in the subway system to the bus system, where, when I was a kid, if you shorted the fare box, the driver would say, "Hey, kid, come, you owe me a nickel." That doesn't happen anymore because there's been too many conflicts between drivers and passengers. So we need to move unarmed fare evasion enforcement professionals, unarmed but uniformed, into the bus system. We're working on that, a new fare evasion model for the buses.
So when you say unarmed, basically what you're saying is you're going to have sort of like fare police but don't have guns.
Yeah.
And is that a good idea? There are people who are going to say that, again, you're targeting the poor.
No. I mean, listen, the same point we were talking about before. We want people who are genuinely low income to get a discount, like our seniors and some veterans do. But what we don't want to do is to have people who are not impoverished to avoid the fare. It's part of New York. We all share the public space.
Also, people in New York want to get something for nothing.
But New Yorkers, one of the things that we're good at is that we kind of respect the rules of our community because we're dense and we need the public space to work. The subway, the buses, it's part of our shared space. Everybody has to feel like it's a fair environment. That no one's getting a break, no one's being made a sucker. That's part of the reason we got to eliminate fare evasion.
So one of the commission people that you hired talked about the fact that you should have summonses issued to people who evade the fare, but maybe the first time you don't get a fine, but the second time you might get a fine of $50. But they also suggested that if you paid the summons, you should get a $50 credit on the subway to take mass transit. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think, listen, that's an interesting idea, is to try to turn people who have committed fare evasion into paying customers by giving them, as part of when they get right with a summons that they earned by cheating the fare, that they should get a little credit, just to incentivize them to start being paying customers and get in that habit. It's one of the ideas among many that we got from this very, very successful fare evasion commission we set up.
You think it's a good idea?
Yeah, I think that's definitely an idea worth considering. We'll have to work all this stuff. The main thing is we've got to combine more fairness in the fare overall, so low-income people get a discount, with better enforcement, better turnstiles, and enforcement on the buses. Those are some of the big ideas. But Marcia, don't forget, there are a lot of people who aren't paying their tolls, who are covering their license plates, and we are doing serious crackdown on those people as well. We got a parking lot full of Bugattis and Mercedes of people who had $50,000 or $100,000 in unpaid tolls.
$50,000 or $100,000?
Yeah, the people who just fake it.
Rich people are not paying?
And we're determined. We have the MTA police and the bridge and tunnel officers on the MTA bridges and tunnels who are pulling those cars over, and when they've lost their registration because of unpaid tolls, we impound the cars.
What are you going to do with the cars?
Well, that's up to the people who own them. If they get right and pay their bills, they might get them back.
So when the budget was passed and you got all this money from the state, and also the city has to pay a little bit more, you said there were going to be all kinds of new subway improvements and transit improvements that people could see. Tell our viewers about the new things they can expect now that you've got this money.
Well, listen, you know the difference between our operating budget, which pays for us to pay everybody who the bus operators and the train operators and the mechanics and so on, our capital budget, which pays for the physical improvements. What we're doing on the capital side is big stuff, making all our buses electric. It's going to take a few years, but we're in the process of converting that. We're making the whole system ADA accessible. We've gone 30 years since the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed, and we're only 150 stations out of 472. So we're investing hugely in ADA. We're re-signaling the system. We're buying new cars. There's going to be new R211 subway car, subway train rolling around as of in the next week or so. We're upgrading the system, and you know what? Already, performance, on-time performance, best in 10 years, 97% on the commuter railroads. Service has been great.
So we only have about 1 minute left. I wanted to ask you how you feel about the pilot for free bus service, one line free in every borough.
Listen, as you heard from me earlier in this discussion, our approach prioritizes targeted affordability. Let's give the discounts to the people who need it. So I have concerns about just making a whole line or a whole area free. But the legislature asked us to focus on this and to learn from it. We're in the process of picking the lines that'll get this temporary pilot for a period of time. My purpose is to figure out how do we get more people to use transit instead of driving. That's what I want to do. I don't want to confuse the riders by some buses are free and some buses aren't, and that makes fare evasion worse. We want to learn from this.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York.